Reason and Revolution by Herbert Marcuse. Part 2, which is called The Rise of Social Theory. Chapter 1.2, The Foundations of the Dialectical Theory of Society, Kierkegaard. Who and what will fulfill the essence of man? Who will realize philosophy? The different answers to these questions exhaust the trends of post-Hegelian philosophy. Two general types may be distinguished. The first, represented by Feuerbach and Kierkegaard, seizes upon the isolated individual. The second, represented by Marx, penetrates to the origins of the individual in the process of social labor and shows how the latter process is the basis of man's liberation. Hegel had demonstrated that the fullest existence of the individual is consummated in his social life. Critical employment of the dialectical method tended to disclose that individual freedom presupposes a free society, and that the true liberation of the individual therefore requires the liberation of society. Fixation on the individual alone would thus amount to adopting an abstract approach, such as Hegel himself set aside. Feuerbach's materialism and Kierkegaard's existentialism, though they embody many traits of a deep-rooted social theory, do not get beyond earlier philosophical and religious approaches to the problem. The Marxian theory, on the other hand, focuses down as a critical theory of society and breaks with the traditional formulations and trends. Kierkegaard's individualistic interpretation of the negation of philosophy inevitably developed a fierce opposition to Western rationalism. Rationalism was essentially universalistic, as we have shown, with reason resident in the thinking ego and the objective mind. The truth was lodged either in the universal pure reason, which was untouched by the circumstances of individual life, or in the universal mind, which could flourish though individuals might suffer and die. Man's material happiness was deserted in both cases by the introversion of reason as well as by its premature adequation to the world as it is. Rationalist philosophy, the individualists contended, was not concerned with man's actual needs and longings. Though it claimed to respond to his true interests, it gave no answer to his simple question for happiness. It could not help him in the concrete decisions he constantly had to make. If, as the rationalists maintained, the real unique existence of the individual, which could never be reduced to a universal, was not the primary subject matter of philosophy, and the truth could not be found in or related to this unique existence, all philosophical efforts were superfluous, nay, dangerous. For they served to divert man from the only realm in which he seeks and needs the truth. Only one criterion, therefore, held for genuine philosophy, its capacity to save the individual. According to Kierkegaard, the individual is not the knowing, but only the ethically existing subjectivity. The sole reality that matters to him is his own ethical existence. Truth lies not in knowledge, for sense perception and historical knowledge are mere semblance, and pure thought is nothing but a phantom. Knowledge deals only with the possible and is incapable of making anything real or even of grasping reality. Truth lies only in action and can be experienced only through action. The individual's own existence is the sole reality that can actually be comprehended, and the existing individual himself the sole subject or performer of this comprehension. His existence is a thinking existence, but his thought is determined by his individual living, so that all his problems arise and are resolved in his individual activity. Every individual in his innermost individuality is isolated from all others. He is essentially unique. There is no union, no community, no universality to contest his dominion. Truth is forever the outcome of his own decision, and can be realized only in the free acts that spring from this decision. The sole decision open to the individual is that between eternal salvation and eternal damnation. Kierkegaard's individualism turns into the most emphatic absolutism. There is only one truth, eternal happiness in Christ, and only one proper decision, to live a Christian life. Kierkegaard's work is the last great attempt to restore religion as the ultimate organon for liberating humanity from the destructive impact of an oppressive social order. His philosophy implies throughout a strong critique of his society, denouncing it as one that distorts and shatters human faculties. The remedy was to be found in Christianity, and the fulfillment in the Christian way of life. Kierkegaard knew that in this society such a way of life involved incessant struggle and ultimate humiliation and defeat, and that a Christian existence within current social forms was ever an impossibility. The church had to be separated from the state, for any dependence on the state would betray Christianity. The true role of the church, freed of any restrictive force, was to denounce prevailing injustice and bondage, and to point up the individual's ultimate interest, his salvation. Salvation could not rely upon external institutions and authorities, nor could it ever be attained by pure thought. Consequently, Kierkegaard now shifts the burden of achieving a life in truth to the concrete individual, the same individual who is the basic concern of Christianity. The individual is the truth, not reason or mankind or the state, for the individual is the only reality. That which exists is always an individual. The abstract does not exist. Kierkegaard returns to the original function of religion, its appeal to the destitute and tormented individual. He thus restores to Christianity its combative and revolutionary force. The appearance of God again assumes the terrifying aspect of a historical event suddenly breaking in upon a society in decay. Eternity takes on a temporal aspect, while the realization of happiness becomes an immediately vital matter of daily life. Kierkegaard, however, was holding to a content that could no longer take a religious form. Religion was doomed to share the fate of philosophy. The salvation of mankind could not any longer rest in the realm of faith, especially since advancing historical forces were in motion, bearing forward the revolutionary core of religion in a concrete struggle for social liberation. In these circumstances, the religious protest was weak and impotent, and religious individualism could even turn against the individual it set out to save. If left to the inner world of the individual, the truth gets separated from the social and political vortex in which it belongs. Kierkegaard's attack on abstract thought led him to assail certain universal concepts that uphold the essential equality and dignity of man. He holds humanity to be a negativity, a mere abstraction from the individual, and a leveling of all existential values. The totality of reason in which Hegel saw the completion of the truth is also a mere abstraction. We can best see how far from a purely philosophical matter is this focusing of philosophy on the uniqueness of the individual, and how much it entails his social and political isolation, when we consider Kierkegaard's attitude to the socialist movement. There is no doubt, he says, that the idea of socialism and community cannot save this age. Socialism is just one among many attempts to degrade individuals by equalizing all so as to remove all organic, concrete differentiations and distinctions. It is a function of resentment on the part of the many against the few, who possess and exemplify the higher values. Socialism is thus part of the general revolt against extraordinary individuals. the anti-rationalist attack on universals becomes increasingly important in the subsequent development of European thought. The assault upon the universal reason was easily swung to an attack on the positive social implications of this universal. We have already indicated that the concept of reason was connected with advanced ideas, like the essential equality of men, the rule of law, the standard of rationality in state and society, and the Western rationalism was thus definitely linked with the fundamental institutions of liberalist society. In the ideological field, the struggle against this liberalism began with the attack on rationalism. The position called existentialism played an important part in this attack. First, it denied the dignity and reality of the universal. This led to a rejection of any universally valid rational norms for state and society. Later, it was claimed that no bond joins individuals, states, and nations into a whole of mankind, that the particular existential conditions of each cannot be submitted to the general judgment of reason. Laws, it was held, are not based upon any universal qualities of man in whom a reason resides. They rather express the needs of individual people whose lives they regulate in accordance with their existential requirements. This demotion of reason made it possible to exalt certain particularities, such as the race or the folk, to the rank of the highest values.